Most people start strong, but quit when it gets hard. They wait for motivation, they chase hacks, and they wonder why they never become great. Today, we'll uncover why consistency is the ultimate weapon that transforms weakness into unstoppable strength. This is the lesson Steve Jobs lived by, and the power that can turn you into a beast. Consistency creates mastery. It's the hidden ingredient behind every masterpiece, every breakthrough, every revolution. And Steve Jobs knew this better than anyone else. Think about it for a second. Most people want success to feel like fireworks. Loud, explosive, a sudden burst of light. But that's not how greatness works. Greatness is quiet. Greatness is built in silence. It's built in those invisible days when nobody's clapping, nobody's watching, and nobody cares about what you're doing. That's where mastery is born, inside the grind of showing up every single day without fail. Jobs didn't wake up one morning and invent the iPhone. He didn't stumble onto Apple's brilliance in a single moment of inspiration. He became who he was through a long, brutal process of repetition, obsession, and refinement. He showed up over and over again. When it was boring, when it was frustrating, when the world told him to stop. That's the power of consistency. Consistency is deceptive because it doesn't reward you right away. You go to the gym once and nothing happens. You practice your craft for a week and you're still average. You commit to a new habit and it feels pointless. That's why most people quit. They think effort equals instant results. They believe one great push will get them to the top. But Jobs understood something different. Consistency doesn't pay you immediately, it compounds. Every repetition builds on the last, accumulating momentum so powerful that it eventually becomes unstoppable. He wasn't chasing random bursts of motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Motivation fades the moment life gets uncomfortable. Jobs built his legacy on rhythm, on consistency, on creating systems that forced him to show up, whether he felt like it or not. He wasn't waiting for the right mood. He showed his identity, and that's where mastery begins, not in talent, not in brilliance, but in the simple discipline of showing up. The truth is, mastery is boring. It's not glamorous, and it's not romantic. It's waking up early to do the same thing you did yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. It's staring at the same design for the 100th time, searching for the smallest detail that could make it better. It's pushing through resistance, not once, not twice, but endlessly. Jobs thrived in this boredom. Where others saw monotony, he saw opportunity. Where others quit, he leaned in harder. That's why his ideas had depth, while others' ideas stayed shallow. Think about the products that changed the world. The iPhone, the Mac, the iPod. They weren't miracles. They were iterations. They were products of consistency, countless prototypes, endless testing, painful rejections, and nights where everything seemed to collapse. But every day, the work continued. Every day, another brick was laid. And when enough bricks were laid, a fortress of innovation stood tall. That's what consistency does. It builds something indestructible. Most people underestimate the power of small actions repeated consistently over time. They overestimate what they can do in a week, but they underestimate what they can build in a decade. Jobs never underestimated it. He understood that the small, daily disciplines eventually lead to breakthroughs so massive, the world calls them impossible. He didn't achieve mastery because he was the smartest. He achieved mastery because he outlasted everyone else. And here's the brutal truth. If you can't stay consistent, you will never master anything. You can have the best idea in the world, but without consistency, it will rot in your mind. You can start the perfect project, but without consistency, it will die halfway. You can dream as big as you want, but without consistency, it will remain a dream forever. Consistency is the bridge between what you dream of and what you create. Jobs treated consistency like oxygen. It wasn't optional. It was survival. He didn't give himself the luxury of quitting when it got tough. He didn't chase motivation. He relied on rhythm, discipline, and repetition. And that's why he built empires while others wasted their lives waiting for the perfect time. You see, most people love the idea of success, but they hate the reality of consistency. Success looks exciting on the outside, but on the inside, it's made of tedious hours, repetitive practice, and endless trial and error. Jobs didn't shy away from this. He embraced it. He built mastery not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, day after day, step after step, long before the world gave him credit. That's the real lesson. Consistency isn't about results in the short term. It's about transformation in the long term. Every day you stay consistent, you are rewiring yourself. You are training your mind to become unbreakable, your skills to become undeniable, your vision to become unstoppable. That's why consistency creates mastery. Because mastery isn't a single act. It's the result of thousands of consistent, invisible acts stacking together until they form something the world can't ignore. Obsession over perfection. That's what Steve Jobs lived by. He understood something that most people never grasp. Perfection is a trap, but obsession, that relentless drive to keep showing up, to keep refining, to keep pushing, is what creates greatness. Most people never start because they're waiting for perfect conditions. They think they need the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect version of their work before they dare to release it. And in that waiting, their dreams die. Perfection becomes their prison. But Jobs didn't live in that prison. He wasn't chasing some final flawless moment. He was chasing progress, one step at a time, obsessively. Think about the first Apple computer. It wasn't sleek, it wasn't polished, and it wasn't perfect. It was clunky, limited, and almost primitive by today's standards. But it was real. It existed. And because it existed, it could be improved. That's the difference between those who chase perfection and those who chase progress. Perfectionists wait forever. Obsessives build, release, learn, and refine. That's how Jobs worked. That's how empires are built. When he was designing the iPod, when he was imagining the iPhone, when he was reshaping the way humans interacted with technology, he didn't wait for perfection. He obsessed over the process. He obsessed over every detail, not because he believed he would reach perfection, but because he believed obsession would reveal something better with each attempt. That's why his work never stood still. It was alive, always evolving, always improving. Perfection is an illusion. It tricks you into thinking there's a finish line, that there's a final version where everything is flawless. But obsession doesn't believe in finish lines. Obsession believes in the next step, the next iteration, the next level of depth. Jobs embodied that. He never said, "This is perfect." He said, "This can be better." And that simple shift in thinking separated him from everyone else. The dangerous thing about chasing perfection is that it paralyzes you. You hesitate to launch your idea, to share your art, to take your shot, because you're terrified it won't be flawless. But Jobs launched. Jobs shipped. Jobs pushed ideas into the world even when they weren't perfect, because he knew perfection was impossible. The real secret was to get obsessed with improving, not finishing. And here's the truth: obsession looks insane from the outside. To most people, it's uncomfortable, even exhausting. They look at someone like Steve Jobs and say, "He's crazy. He's too intense. He's too demanding." But that's exactly why he achieved what others couldn't. He didn't water down his vision to make it comfortable. He let obsession fuel him, sharpen him, drive him. Where others sought comfort, he sought refinement. Where others sought balance, he sought breakthroughs. When you choose obsession over perfection, you permit yourself to start messy, to fail, to learn, to adapt. You stop asking, "Is this flawless?" and start asking, "Is this better than yesterday?" That mindset changes everything. Because success isn't built in one perfect strike, it's built in thousands of relentless swings, each one slightly sharper than the last. Jobs didn't want the perfect product on the first try. He wanted the product that kept evolving until it changed everything. And that required obsession. He obsessed over design, over user experience, over simplicity, not to achieve some mythical state of perfection, but because obsession forced him deeper than anyone else was willing to go. He dug into the details others ignored. He pushed his teams to refine what others thought was good enough. That's why his products felt different. They were born from obsession, not hesitation. And here's the raw reality: if you wait for perfection, you'll wait forever. The timing will never be right. The idea will never be flawless. The product will never feel finished. That's why most people die with their ideas still locked inside them. Jobs wasn't willing to let that happen. He launched before it was perfect, then obsessed over making it better. That cycle of relentless iteration, that was his power. Think about how different your life would be if you stopped waiting for perfection and started obsessing over progress. If you stopped holding back your work, your goals, your vision, until they were flawless, and instead you started refining them in real time, learning through the process. That's the difference between staying stuck and becoming unstoppable. Perfection is about fear. Obsession is about growth. Perfection says, "Don't risk it. It might not be good enough." Obsession says, "Keep going. It's going to get better." Jobs chose growth. He chose obsession. And because of that, he never stood still. His work moved forward every single day, not because it was perfect, but because it was alive, because it was evolving, because it was the product of relentless obsession. The pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. This is the battle every single person faces, whether they admit it or not. Steve Jobs understood it deeply, and he made his choice. He chose discipline. He chose the daily discomfort, the grind, the sacrifice, because he knew that while discipline hurts now, regret destroys you forever. Discipline is waking up early when you want to sleep in. Discipline is saying no to distractions when every fiber of your body wants to give in. Discipline is doing the work when nobody is watching, when nobody is applauding, when nobody cares. It's painful, yes. It takes pieces out of you. But that pain is temporary. It fades. And on the other side of it lies growth, strength, mastery. Regret is different. Regret is permanent. Regret is the weight you carry for the rest of your life. Because you didn't stay consistent. You gave up too soon because you let your excuses win. Jobs didn't fear failure. He feared regret. He feared the thought of dying without unleashing his vision, without seeing how far he could push himself, without finding out what he was truly capable of. Most people live their lives in the wrong direction. They avoid discipline because it feels hard. They avoid effort because it feels uncomfortable. They avoid sacrifice because it feels painful. But in avoiding those temporary pains, they're building something far worse. A future filled with regret, and regret doesn't fade. Regret festers. Regret eats you alive from the inside. Jobs chose the opposite path. He leaned into the pain of discipline. He let it shape him, sharpen him, break him down, and rebuild him stronger. He chose the late nights, the brutal criticism, the endless repetition, the obsessive pursuit of detail. Not because he loved the pain, but because he understood it was the only way to avoid something much darker. The regret of knowing he didn't give his best. Discipline has a price, but it also has a reward. Regret has no reward. The pain of discipline is the pain of growth. It's the soreness after the workout. The exhaustion after long hours of focus, the discomfort of sacrifice. It feels heavy in the moment, but it leaves you stronger. The pain of regret is different. It's the emptiness when you realize you wasted years. It's the bitterness when you see someone else living the life you could have lived. It's the heartbreak when opportunities slip through your fingers because you never stayed disciplined long enough to seize them. Jobs didn't want that heartbreak. That's why he accepted the grind that others ran from. When he was fired from Apple, he didn't collapse into regret. He didn't drown in excuses. He used discipline to build again. He launched NXT, he reshaped Pixar, and eventually, he returned to Apple to create some of the greatest products in history. That resilience didn't come from talent. It came from discipline. The ability to keep moving forward, no matter the pain. And here's the brutal truth. Most people don't want to hear discipline will hurt you today, but regret will haunt you tomorrow. The late nights, the long hours, the endless focus, it's heavy, but it's temporary. The regret of wasted potential is permanent. You can't outwork regret once it's set in. You can't rewind time and choose discipline later. You either pay the price now, or you pay it forever. Jobs made sure he paid now. Every decision he made, every standard he set, every demand he placed on himself and his teams, it was all rooted in discipline. He pushed people to their limits, not because he enjoyed the struggle, but because he understood what was at stake. He refused to let himself or those around him settle for regret. Think about your own life. The times you stuck to discipline. No matter how hard those moments shaped you. Those are the moments you're proud of. And the times you gave up, the times you cut corners, the times you avoided the pain, you regret them. You carry them. They haunt you. That's the difference. Discipline gives you pride. Regret gives you shame. Jobs never wanted to look back and think, I could have done more. He wanted to know, deep in his bones, that he gave everything. That's why he chose discipline. That's why he embraced the pain of focus, the pain of persistence, the pain of sacrifice. Because he knew the alternative was far worse. He knew regret would crush him in ways discipline never could. Transformation through persistence. This is the final truth Steve Jobs embodied. Persistence is what takes an ordinary human being and turns them into something unrecognizable, something stronger, something unstoppable, a beast. Persistence is not about talent. It's not about intelligence. It's not even about opportunity. It's about refusing to quit when every reason to quit is staring you in the face. It's about staying in the fight long enough for transformation to take place. Jobs wasn't born different. He wasn't born with a roadmap to success. He was born human, just like everyone else, flawed, uncertain, afraid. But persistence reshaped him. Every time he refused to give up, every time he pushed past another failure, every time he came back from another setback, he was transforming. He was becoming someone new, someone harder to stop, someone sharper than before. That's what persistence does. It doesn't just move you forward, it rebuilds you from the inside out. Think about it. The Steve Jobs who founded Apple wasn't the same Steve Jobs who returned years later to save it. The first version had vision, yes, but he was young, brash, still learning. When he was fired, he could have broken. He could have drowned in regret. He could have disappeared like countless others who got one shot and lost it. But persistence wouldn't let him die there. He built NXT. He transformed Pixar into a storytelling empire. And when he came back to Apple, he wasn't the same man. He was sharper. He was stronger. He was relentless. That transformation was earned through persistence. Most people never transform because they quit too soon. They start, they hit resistance, and then they stop. They let failure define them instead of refining them. They never stay in the struggle long enough to become someone new. Jobs stayed. he endured. And every time he refused to quit, persistence carved him into something more powerful. Persistence doesn't just test your skills, it tests your identity. It asks, who are you when everything is against you? Who are you when the world says no? Who are you when failure keeps knocking at your door? Most people run. Jobs didn't. He leaned in. He let the fire of persistence burn away the weakness. And in that fire, transformation happened. When you persist, something extraordinary takes place. Your mind rewires. Your tolerance for pain increases. Your creativity expands under pressure. Your focus sharpens. Persistence forges character in a way success never can. Success is a trophy. Persistence is the forge that creates the warrior who can hold that trophy. Look at the iPhone. Look at the iPod. Look at the Mac. None of those things came from a single stroke of genius. They came from persistence. Endless prototypes. Endless revisions. Endless failures. Each attempt, each iteration, each small step forward transformed both the product and the man behind it. Persistence doesn't give you one giant leap. It gives you 1,000 small transformations that add up to something the world calls impossible. Jobs lived in those transformations. He embraced them. He allowed persistence to break him down and rebuild him stronger. That's why his vision never died, even when he was pushed out of the company he founded. Persistence kept it alive. It kept him alive. It turned rejection into fuel. It turned setbacks into sharpening stones. It turned obstacles into stepping stones. And here's the truth most people never realize: persistence doesn't just change what you accomplish. It changes who you are. You can't persist without becoming someone different. You can't persist without evolving into someone tougher, more resilient, more focused. Jobs didn't just persist in building Apple. He persisted in becoming Steve Jobs, the icon, the visionary, the man who would not stop until his vision was real. Persistence is transformation, because every moment you don't quit, you're proving to yourself that you are more than your excuses, more than your failures, more than your pain. Each time you stay in the fight, you shed the old version of yourself. The weaker version dies. The stronger version rises. Jobs understood that. He embraced that. And that's why persistence made him unstoppable. So here it is. The lesson Steve Jobs lived by, the lesson most people will never accept. Consistency creates mastery. Obsession drives progress. Discipline crushes regret. And persistence transforms you into something the world can't stop. These weren't just ideas. They were choices. Jobs chose them every single day. He chose the grind when it was boring. He chose progress when perfection seemed impossible. He chose discipline when the world was offering comfort. And he chose persistence when life tried to break him. That's why he changed the world. Not because he was the smartest, not because he was the luckiest, but because he refused to quit when others did. Because he stayed in the fire long enough to be forged into something different. And now, the choice is yours. You can live like most people, waiting, hesitating, quitting. Or you can live like Jobs. You can embrace the consistency, the obsession, the discipline, and the persistence that will transform you into a beast. The kind of beast the world cannot ignore. The kind of beast who doesn't just dream of the future. He builds it.